broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. I want to show this real quick, Dr. McCullough, because we've been really promoting these memberships. Because if you go there to twc.health/Brannon, you can get the one Wellness Select for basically just under $10 a month. The middle one for under $50 a month, and that one includes free prescriptions for under $50 a month, or the Elite, which is $99.99 a month, and that adds in free supplements as well. I mean, this is amazing prices. I was talking to Dr. Thorpe the other day about this. Dr. Thorpe was like, I don't know how they do this because this is such a reasonable price, free subscriptions, free supplements. He was shocked at how reasonable this is.
Right. So anybody who gets one of these memberships, they can transfer their existing prescriptions into the program for the One Wellness Premier or Elite. I did it myself and for my wife, Brannon. And now the orders go to America's Pharmacy in Ohio. They're shipped out the next day. Zero copay. You don't have to go to CVS or Walgreens to pick it up. It just comes to you. This is a terrific program. It covers hundreds and hundreds of drugs. And not only that, the supplements. We have so many people on the Spike Detox. And so here you go. At the higher level, Spike Detox is covered.
This is Brannon Howse Live. Whether the issue is law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, government, or national security, Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
And welcome to the broadcast on this January 7th, 2025. Big news today, folks. A lot in the news, and maybe you're not connecting the dots. We're going to help you do that tonight. Donald Trump is talking about making Canada our 51st state, but there's more to it. He held a press conference today. There's also talk about Greenland, and you're saying, wait a minute, what is Greenland and Canada and the Panama Canal and naming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America? What does all this have in common? Well, it has a lot to do with something that started back in the 1930s, and guess whose grandfather was calling for merging America, Canada, and Mexico together all the way down to Central America, including grabbing up the Panama Canal and Greenland. Whose grandfather? The grandfather of Elon Musk. Oh, yeah, we're going to explain a lot tonight. Joining me is going to be Patrick Wood and Leo Holman. Dealt with this on radio today, but we just scratched the surface on radio because we wanted to, take your calls today. And so we did for radio, but we just scratched the surface. We're going to get to a lot more. Take a look at this right here. Don Jr. and my reps landing in Greenland. The reception has been great. That's today, folks, January 7th, 2025. Why Greenland? I don't know. That's Trump Force One landing there. But wait till we show you what we're going to show you. And then there's the Panama Canal. President Trump is saying, hey, we're going to take that thing back. That's ours. We built it. And the president of Panama is saying, no, I'm sorry. Every square meter of Panama Canal belongs to Panama. Trump tweeted back, we'll see about that. Here's President Trump on December 21st, 2024, talking all about taking back the Panama Canal. Now, I don't know that Donald Trump knows what we're going to say, what we're going to talk about tonight as far as the history of Elon Musk's grandfather, the history of some of the movements that we're going to talk about. He doesn't know about these things. And maybe he'll see the broadcast. Maybe people will tell him, because we want Donald Trump to do great things in his second term. We want Donald Trump to make America great again. Do you have the dolly cam? Can we go to the dolly cam? Because I'm hearing some rustling around here. There she is right there. I think she was on the logo. I think she was on her back, rolling around on the logo. Now she's in the control room, but there you go. She was quite excited about that, I guess. I heard that. All right, so anyway, that's distracting. Sorry, Dolly. All right. So, anywho, we got to make America great again, not make North America great again. But I think we're headed toward a North American Union. By the way, let me take you, if you'll pull that down, guys, let me take you over to the Vault real quick. The Vault, where we archive over 2 decades of my radio shows, TV shows, and so much more. Look at this. Just go there to the Vault, to worldviewtube.com, and type in North American Union. There's an article on our website from 2006. See that right there? 2006. And we began to talk about the North American Union since 2006 forward, including I did a lot of interviews. With Phyllis Schlafly. You guys remember Phyllis Schlafly? Well, she was a guest on my show. I was a guest on her show many times, back and forth. And I began to interview Phyllis Schlafly, one of the very first people to ever come out and endorse Donald Trump. And another one of the ones that came out early on was Jeff Sessions. Of course, he wanted to become the attorney general, kind of lost his stomach for fighting the deep state, didn't he? But he was warning about the TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, that would really create a North American Union. Here we go. This is, again, my show back in 2007, talking about a North American Union. Here's Phyllis Schlafly on the North American Union. That's me interviewing her back in 2007. Me interviewing Phyllis Schlafly on this. So, folks, this is something we've been on a very long time. Next year, it'll be 20 years. We've been talking about the North American Union. Well, folks on social media today are saying, wait a minute, all of this sounds like the North American Union. And some are saying, I sure would like to know more about this. Well, you've come to the right place. We've been covering it for 19 years. And of course, people like Patrick Wood have been doing the same thing. Joining me now is Patrick Wood and Leo Holman. Gentlemen, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Hello, Brannon. Good
Hello,
to be
Leo.
with you.
Hello, Leo. Hello, Patrick.
Here we go.
Here we go. That's right. Here we go. In fact, let's go to a couple clips real quick. Let's see what we got here. Got so many clips. Here's President Trump talking about Greenland and the Panama Canal. Listen to this.
President, thank you. I wanted to touch on the world on fire that you mentioned, but let's start, if we could, with your references to Greenland and the Panama Canal, so forth. Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
No.
And can you tell us a little bit about what your plan is? Are you going to negotiate a new treaty? Are you going to ask the Canadians to hold a vote? What is the strategy?
Yeah, I can't assure you, you're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two. But I can say this, we need them for economic security. The Panama Canal was built for our military. I'm not going to commit to that now. It might be that you'll have to do something. Look, the Panama Canal is vital to our country. It's being operated by China. China. And we gave the Panama Canal to Panama. We didn't give it to China. And they've abused it. They've abused that gift. It should have never been made, by the way. Giving the Panama Canal is why Jimmy Carter lost the election, in my opinion, more so maybe than the hostages. The hostages were a big deal. But if you remember, and nobody wants to talk about the Panama Canal now because, you know, it's inappropriate, I guess, but because it's a bad part of the Carter legacy. But he was a good man. Look, he was a good man. I knew him a little bit, and he was a very fine person, but that was a big mistake. Giving the Panama Canal to Panama was a very big mistake. We lost 38,000 people. It cost us the equivalent of $1 trillion, maybe more than that. Probably the most expensive, they say it was the most expensive structure, if we call it a structure, which I guess you can, ever built. And giving that away was a horrible thing. And I believe that's why Jimmy Carter lost the election, even more so than the hostages, those two things.
All right, so there he is talking about Greenland, about the Panama Canal. What does that all have to do with Elon Musk's grandfather? So let's start going through a few things. I was up early this morning at the desk by right around 7 o'clock, starting to build this PowerPoint. Let me go to this one here, the first one. Here you go. Declaration of North America. This was back in January 10th, 2023. This is the Biden administration talking about a North American, a Declaration of North America. But this really all goes back really to George W. Bush, does it not, Patrick?
We go back to George W. Bush and Dick Cheney as well, a member of the Trilateral Commission, by the way. They were the last to propose this, were the major ones. Obama also did the same thing when he flirted with Mexico and Canada as well. But the big splash that we will all remember was in the Bush administration in 2005 and 6.
Well, in fact, I even have a clip from when Larry King had on the former the former president of Mexico, Vicente Fox, on Larry King. So for all of you that think this is conspiracy theory, which I don't think there's many in this audience that do, but anyone that might be listening in, it's not. Listen, I've played this clip so many times over the years. Listen to Vicente Fox on Larry King about North American Union and an Amero that was coming. He said, well, that's down the line, the Amero. He didn't say we're not going to go to a united currency. He said that'll be down the line. This was many years ago. Here we go.
Do you fear that in part of illegal immigration problem is terrorism?
No, not at all. It's totally different business, absolutely different.
You don't equate the two?
Not, absolutely not.
Email from Mrs. Gonzalez in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Mr. Fox, I'd like to know how you feel about the possibility of having a Latin America united with one currency.
Long term, very long term. What we proposed together, President Bush and myself, it's ALCA, which is a trade union for all of the Americas. And everything was running fluently until Hugo Chavez came. And he decided to isolate himself. He decided to combat the idea and destroy the idea. And very unfortunately,
is it going to be like the euro dollar, you mean?
Well, that would be long term. I think the process is to go first step into a trading agreement, and then further on, a new vision like we're trying to do with NAFTA.
All right, so what did he say there? He didn't say no. He said what?
Decided to isolate himself. He decided to combat the idea and destroy the idea. And very unfortunately,
is it going to be like the euro dollar, you mean?
Well, that would be long term.
Okay, that'd be long term. The euro, like a euro, but a Amero. Patrick, again, this is his own words. We just saw it.
Exactly. And he was one of the negotiators at the time, talking with Bush and the leader of Canada as well.
Yeah, he was. All right, Leo, this is something you and I have been talking about for years as well. Weigh in on what you're hearing so far today. Talk of the Panama Canal, getting a hold of Greenland, maybe making Canada the 51st state. All of this, in my opinion, is how Donald Trump negotiates, right? It's the art of the deal. We're going to start with, we're just going to take your whole state or your whole country, make you the 51st state. We're just going to take the Panama Canal. We're going to take Greenland. We're going to do that. And then he starts negotiating from that standpoint. But I think if this continues, or we're going to see the history of Elon Musk's grandfather all over this, I think if this is the starting point, I think we are headed toward a North American Union to some degree, which to me fits with Bible prophecy. I can't be dogmatic about it, but the Bible talks about the 10 horns or 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom. At the time that John the Revelator was writing, they had not received a kingdom. So he's saying there are 10 horns, there are 10 kings who at this point have not received their kingdom, but at some point they will. And when they do, they will unite, and eventually they will give their power to the Antichrist. They'll take their 10 federation of nations and give their power to a one world leader the Bible describes as the Antichrist. Now we know the European Union Commission, I have it from years gone by in my presentations. The European Union Commission for years has talked about dividing the world into 10 regions, a North American Union, a European Union, a Central America Union, a Middle Eastern Union. So not just the European Union Commission, but also the United Nations has divided the world into these 10 regions, as well as has the Club of Rome. I think we're now watching from administration to administration to administration. We keep seeing the common themes here. I think we're headed that way. Now, from a standpoint of pragmatism or dealing with the crisis, you got the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and about 30 other nations want to join in on this new currency to compete with the U.S. dollar, destroy the U.S. dollar. We're so in debt. We keep on this track another 4 years, we'll be out $54 trillion in debt, not counting our off-record debt, like unfunded liabilities. That's over $200 trillion. So from Donald Trump's standpoint, he's probably saying, this thing is going to collapse on my watch. We're going to have to go to some kind of new currency back with some kind of hard asset since Nixon closed the gold window. And now you've got Saudi Arabia, which is what our dollar used to be backed by, oil, because Nixon, after he closed the gold window, negotiated with Saudi Arabia to trade oil in the world market with the dollar. Well, under Biden pulls the Patriot missiles out of Saudi Arabia, not keeping the agreement to provide the kind of protection that we should to Saudi Arabia, which is why they were trading oil in the world market with the dollar, making it the petrodollar, giving it some kind of backing since Nixon closed the gold window. But then Russia rushes in and convinces Saudi Arabia to come join them in BRICS. Now all these countries are going to start dumping the dollar as the world reserve currency, not trading oil anymore. Our dollar is going to be toast. So Trump comes in and says, we're going to have to do something to back this currency. Their central banks are buying up gold left and right. We keep seeing that in record numbers. Now we see that these countries are going to start backing their currency probably with minerals and valuables. Now you go back into my vault and you'll find, again, as I showed last week, 2010, 2011, I'm doing radio shows saying I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see the government continuing in America to buy up or grab up state land, federalize it to back with a currency, to use a hard asset of land and minerals to back a currency with. And now we see a plan from the Rockefellers and others to do just that. Natural resources for debt leverage. So Trump comes in, he's like, I got this dollar that's collapsing. The world's walking away from the dollar. Maybe we can find a way to merge Canada, America, and Mexico and then use their assets and ours to back a U.S. dollar. So from a pragmatic self-preservation standpoint, I can see his point, but I don't think he realizes that Elon's grandfather is up to his neck in this.
Well, I don't think he would care that Elon's grandfather is up to his neck in this. I think he would agree that with Elon's grandfather that it's a good idea. I think the only thing that he may not be aware of is the biblical prophetic aspects that you alluded to. And I hope somebody can perhaps get to the president and fill him in on that. But you're right. It's all about the resources, Brannon. And if you look at the bigger picture, nothing has changed in terms of what the United States is trying to accomplish, but Trump, I think, is trying to go about it a little bit different way. This new world order, which will be based on digitization of everything, living and non-living, including all of the currencies, the fiat currencies, as Patrick has told us numerous times previously, are on their deathbed. They're just waiting for the final nail to be put in the coffin, and they will all collapse. So you will have to replace them with something, and it will have to be based on something. Now, let's just circle back a little bit to the current regime, the Biden regime. They were aware of all of this as well, and the trend line and where it's going. You said that the BRICS coalition of nations was trying to destroy the dollar. I would say that the United States government has destroyed its own dollar.
That's true.
Due to all the reckless spending for decades and decades.
Enemies, foreign and domestic, have done a number on our dollar.
The BRICS nations are just trying to exploit that recklessness to their own advantage, and who can blame them for that? But it is based, as you correctly pointed out, this new currency will be based on natural resources. And so that is the main reason why the Western nations have been so hot to remove Vladimir Putin in Russia, because he is sitting atop the world's largest amount of natural resources. Russia has by far the most valuable natural resources, rare earth minerals, gas, oil. If you add all that up, sitting under the soil of Russia, they control more than any other country under the current world map. Now that's the key, the current world map. If you look at the list of which countries control what resources, underneath Russia, in a pretty much distant second, is the United States. We are also resource rich, but alone we can't really compete with Russia. Now we're starting to see why President Trump may be seeking an end run around this war situation and this confrontation with Russia. If he can lock Canada and Greenland and perhaps other Central and South American countries into a new North American economic bloc, now you're talking about resources that can compete with Russia, China, and India. Canada people don't think of Canada as an economic power, but if you look in terms of just rare natural resources, raw resources, they were also in the top
plus
5 countries.
Plus hydroelectricity.
Yes, they're in the top 5 countries, and Greenland similarly. So if you add Greenland and Canada to a North American Union with the United States, Mexico, and a few other countries, you are now talking about a powerful economic bloc that can compete with the BRICS nations.
Let's go to Kevin. Kevin has been on, Kevin O'Leary. He's been on Fox News twice with 2 different hosts. He's pitching this big time to Trump. Listen to this.
With President-elect Trump on this issue.
I had 2 topics that I wanted to talk to him about. Number one was integrating Canada towards a North American Union for greater strength, just period. The world's a difficult place these days, and most Canadians would like to look at that opportunity without giving up their sovereignty. So low-hanging fruit would be combined currency, for example, combining the Bank of Canada with the Fed, things like that. We are the largest trading partners. And just to ask him, because this was on Saturday, to say these meetings you're having with Trudeau and finance ministers from Canada, with all due respect, sir, are a complete waste of time. This guy's going to get eradicated out of the Canadian political landscape. Give the Canadians a chance to re-elect a leader, just like you got re-elected, that has a 4-year mandate, just like you have, and let's get down to business. And I hope they didn't land on deaf ears. I think he saw the rationale in that. That was one topic. But I had another agenda item that was very important to me. And
there you go. So that's his first interview. Now, that was with Martha McCallum of Fox News. And then he went on to say this again on Fox News. Listen to this.
And then Trump put out a Truth Social just a few hours ago saying this: breaking, Kevin O'Leary says he will go to Mar-a-Lago to start the narrative about merging Canada with the United States. Think about the power of combining the 2 economies.
yeah, I'm going to go there. But let me tell you something. I'm very fortunate. I have millions of followers there in Canada, as I do in the U.S. So in the last 48 hours, I've been doing my own unofficial polling, trying to get the real tonality of what the country wants, because it's diverse. You got the Quebec guys, you got the Alberta guys, BC guys. And so here's really, you know what I love about Trump is he throws big ideas out there and causes an absolute, you-know-what, poo-poo storm. And then out of it comes some really good ideas, because I tell you what Canadians like. They don't want to give up their sovereignty, just like a guy that's born in Florida doesn't want to say he wasn't born there. He wants to be a Florida native. So if a guy's born in, Toronto or in Calgary and Montreal, wants to keep that. But combining our countries together with a common currency, a viable passporting system after you're approved, as they have in EU, we'd be the most powerful nation on earth. What do the Canadians got? Unlimited water, unlimited power, unlimited paper, unlimited reserves of every kind. There's only 40 million of them, aside of California. And they don't want to squabble. They want to trade north, south, east, west. So the ideas are simple. Common currency, common defense of the North against the Chinese. I'm not a fan of the Chinese government. Everybody knows that. And I worry about that, and everybody should. And the Russians, too. We don't need them messing around up north. We could make that very, very clear to them. And what country on earth would mess with a combined economic entity?
There you go. Safety and security. We've heard that before. Folks, what he's saying there is safety and security. Security economically, but safety from national security standpoint. These kind of partnerships are often pushed on the issue of trade. Oh, it's just about trade. Look, you go back to the European market, and the European market back in the 60s, 70s. They were pushing this all based on trade. And what did you end up with? You end up with the European Union. But it all started with, this is just about trade. We heard that from Vicente Fox earlier on Larry King. It's going to start with trade. It's going to start. So it's always about trade, number one. And then number two, safety and security. You just heard the safety and security part from Kevin O'Leary. Patrick?
You heard this term PPP, in 2005.
The TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership.
No, I'm not talking about PPP. That was the Peace and Prosperity Partnership.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
That's what it was called, the North American Union, PPP. But my point is, it was all about security for one, and then trade on the other hand. It wasn't necessarily about a political union, although it could have been, but they were incessantly pushing this business like NAFTA on steroids at that point.
All right, so let's go to Donald Trump talking about the Panama Canal. And then I'm going to take you to some screenshots to show you this has actually been in the works, folks, since the 1930s. Listen to President Trump a few months ago speaking at Turning Point USA on Panama Canal.
As another example of the things we're doing and looking at, it's such a terrible thing is happening. The Panama Canal is considered a vital national asset for the United States of America due to its critical role of American economy, the whole world economy, and also national security. The Panama Canal. Has anyone ever heard of the Panama Canal? Because we're being ripped off at the Panama Canal like we're being ripped off everywhere else. A secure, he just said take it back. That's a good idea. Where do you come from, sir? He doesn't come from Panama. Oh, yeah, good. A secure Panama Canal is crucial for U.S. commerce and rapid deployment of the Navy from the Atlantic all the way to the Pacific. It's an incredible thing, and drastically cut shipping times down to U.S. ports by days and even weeks. The United States is the #1 user of the Panama Canal, with over 72% of all transits heading to or from U.S. ports. Think of that. So we built it. We're the ones that use it. They gave it away. Considered one of the one of the great wonders of the world. The Panama Canal opened for business 110 years ago and was built at huge cost to the United States, and it really is big when you consider the lives and the treasure, the equivalent of $1.2 trillion today. You don't hear those numbers. 38,000 American men, almost all men, they went there to be construction workers and dig. They were diggers, and they were brave. 38,000 men died from infected mosquitoes in the jungles of Panama during the construction period. Think of that. We lost 38,000 men. Teddy Roosevelt was president of the United States at the time of its building and understood the strength of naval power and trade. When President Jimmy Carter foolishly gave it away for $1.
All right, so there we go. Now, let's hurry along here because we've got a lot of PowerPoint presentations to bring in. So here in the last few days, we've heard Greenland, we've heard Canada, we've heard turning the Gulf of Mexico into calling it now the, do you have that clip, Logan, where he says we're going to take the Gulf of Mexico? I think I have it here. Yeah, here we go. Listen to this. So the Gulf of Mexico, connecting dots again. Greenland, Gulf of Mexico, Canada, and the Panama Canal. They all connect up. We'll show you how in just a second. Listen to this.
We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name. And it's appropriate. It's appropriate. And Mexico has to stop allowing millions of people to pour into our country. They can stop them. And we're going to put very serious tariffs on Mexico and Canada, because Canada, they come through Canada too, and the drugs that are coming through are at record numbers.
All right, so there you go. All right, now let's go to a keynote presentation.
Can I just add one quick thing, Brannon?
Yeah.
When I first saw that, I almost thought that must have been a fake AI video. I mean, that is just so shocking that a president of the United States would seriously talk about renaming the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, But then I had to research it and found out that that is exactly the words that were used, and they did come out of President Trump's mouth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a big day. This is a big day historically.
Yeah.
A lot has happened today, January 7th, 2025, that's gone over the heads of 99.9% of Americans.
Oh, right. And
Yeah.
even if 99% of them do see these different snippets of news at various points during the day or the week, they won't connect them as all being part of the same agenda.
That's right. So look at this tweet from yesterday, January 6th. Many people in Canada love being the 51st state. The United States can no longer suffer the massive trade deficits and subsidies that Canada needs to stay afloat. Justin Trudeau knew this and resigned. If Canada merged with the U.S., there would be no tariffs. Taxes would go way down, and they would be totally secure from the threat of the Russian and Chinese ships that are constantly surrounding them. Together, what a great nation it would be. That was yesterday, January 6, 2025. Here we see today, January 7th, 2025, Trump Force One landing in Greenland with Don Jr. and others. Okay? Again, we showed you the tweet where he is saying we're going to take back the Panama Canal. And you just heard him talk about that. And the president of Canada says not so fast. And he says we'll see about that. So let's go to this, technocracy. Now, that's something that has been described and talked about by Patrick Wood for years. But here's a website, and it says technocracy derives from the Greek words tekani, meaning skill, and kratos, meaning power. So skill and power, as in government or rule. Thus, the term technocracy denotes a system of government where those who have knowledge, expertise, or skills comprise the governing body. The term technocrat then denotes a person who either supports or promotes the concept of technocracy or as a membership of a technocratic government. A technocratic government may have a number of implementation with an administration composed of a body of scientists and engineers forming one possible type. Notice though what it really is. It is really a government run by experts. Now, if you go to Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, part of the Earth Summit in Rio in 1992, you will see that really what we have with that is a bunch of unelected bureaucrats running our local governments. Our local governments that are elected give power to unelected bureaucrats who sit on various boards at the local level and the state level and the federal level to implement environmental policies that start to limit freedom of property, which invites the environmentalists to be a part of so that they can then get a hold of this and for the sake of all the minerals and the land and the control. And it ends up not being your elected officials, but what? A group of so-called experts, scientists, and other experts. Correct, Patrick?
That's right. And back in 1932 to the end of that decade, for sure, they were proposing and pumping the idea that we need to get rid of all politicians and basically implement technocracy run by scientists and engineers. They figured, well, if we have the science, what do we need to discuss? This is the same attitude that, like, Fauci had during COVID.
Yes.
There's nothing to discuss here. You can't argue with the science, for Pete's sake, just get off of it. So this was the attitude that early technocrats had, and we still see this attitude today. But basically, they want us to basically get out of the way, forget the representative government that we like, that's our Constitution, and basically turn everything over to them to run.
Yep.
Do you remember, Patrick, as well, Brannon, how when Fauci was presented with some of this, like what happened to our political system? How come we're not having political debate? America was built on open political debate. That's part of our American way. He said exactly what Patrick was saying, that it's about the science. You cannot argue with science. And then he had the audacity to take it one step further and say, I am the science.
Yeah, and then we find out that the 6-foot separation rule was something he just made up.
Just made it up. It was not based on science at all. And that's the fundamental fraudulent nature of technocracy. And I think the one thing that perhaps they have changed, the technocrats from 1932 to today, whereas in 1932, they were talking about the complete elimination of all politicians. I would say that today they have refined that a little bit, and they believe because of human nature we need politicians to be the front men, but they will be nothing more than stooges. And we saw this during COVID when every single political leader around the world, no matter how big or small the country, the political leader lined up 100% with what was coming out of the WHO, the CDC, and like-minded organizations in various countries, which represented what? The science. There was no debate. There was no questioning. Political leaders, in fact, there were a few political leaders in Africa and whatnot who said, no, we're not going to go along with this. And they mysteriously disappeared. So you will follow and toe the line as a political leader, as a politician in this new technocratic day and age. And I think during COVID, they made examples of those who refused to go along.
So COVID was really, I think, a bioweapon attack, a depopulation attack. It was many things, right? But it was also a test. It was a test. It was a test to see how the public would respond. It was a large beta test of what is yet to come. Now, take a look at this screenshot here. This, again, is from a website on technocracy. It gives the history going back to the 30s. The North American Technate. Now, I had not ever heard that term technate until today, when early this morning talking to Patrick. He said, oh, you got to research technate. So I started researching it. This is a map of the North American Technate. Okay, you see off to the right. I'm going to blow it up, show it to you. But listen to what it says. The North American Technate, this is a pro-trans humanist, technocratic website. The North American Technate is a design and plan to transform North America into a technocratic state. So it's run by, again, technocratic, run by skilled people and scientists and engineers, not elected officials. It would be your Elon Musk, SpaceX, and other people. The public-private partnership, really. Big government, big business merging together. That's what I've been calling and talking about for years as communitarianism. That's what Klaus Schwab promotes as the public-private partnership at the World Economic Forum. But the site says the plan includes using Canada's rich deposits of minerals and hydroelectric power as a complement to the United States' industrial and agricultural capacity. Now, remember, folks, this was going back into the 1930s. The North America Technate would be composed of all of North America, Central America, the Caribbean, parts of South America, and wait for it, and Greenland. And Greenland, right? And where did Don Jr. land today? Greenland. So you got to get Greenland in this, encompassing some 30 modern nations, as well as numerous non-self-governing territories. If the Technate were set up today, it would contain nearly 600 million citizens, this is back then, and its total land area would be over 26 million square kilometers, right? KM, kilometers. Its territorial claims would stretch from the North Pole in the north to the equator in the south, and from the Caribbean in the east to the international date line in the Pacific Ocean to the west. Patrick?
That's a big area, the big area. You know, this map that you're showing on this right there, this is a colorized map of the one that we see in the technocracy study course, right? The same thing. This same thing here as well. This whole map today, this is the exact plan that's forming right before our eyes. It's unmistakable at this point. How can we tie this back to the 1930s? Well, the technocrats of the world are going to scream foul at us for suggesting that this is where it came from in the first place. But I'm sorry, you can't deny that the visuals and the statements out of their mouth. You can't make this stuff up.
Nope.
These people have proposed this idea, and it's stuck all along the way through the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, and now to 2024. The dream at this point is in jeopardy of being realized, finally, to create this North American Technate, as they call it.
Yeah, indeed. All right, hold it right there, folks. Got to pay some bills. We're going to come back and show you names, books from the 30s, and give you the history of Elon Musk's grandfather involved in this, okay? Now, we're going to take a quick break. Let me ask you this, folks. Where would you hear this? You going to hear this on Fox News? You think we're going to hear this on Fox News, Patrick?
Nope, not hardly.
Leo, you think Fox News, Newsmax, you think any of them will cover this, Patrick or Leo?
Nope.
Not in your wildest dreams.
No. I mean, do they even know these things? Do you think anyone at Fox and Newsmax even understands what we're discussing? So how could they discuss what they don't know? Do you think they even know this, guys?
No.
Well,
No.
if they check in their archives, I'm sure they were doing stories about it during the George W. Bush administration, but they don't, and they won't.
But they don't know about technocracy going back to the 30s. I highly doubt they were talking about that.
I highly doubt that.
Yeah. So here's the point we're making, folks. This is a rare network, okay? We're committed to the truth. We're not bought by big pharma. We're not bought by big business. We don't get government money like National Public Radio and Public Television, which I guess got about $500 million last year. We're brought to you by you. So if you appreciate what you're hearing and the education you're getting, we need your support. Please consider going now to worldviewfoundation.com and making a contribution. I think we have a lower third for that. There it is, worldviewfoundation.com. You can also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail, worldviewfoundation.com. Now remember, we are endeavoring to open a DC bureau. Many of you are asking where we're at with that. We are making great progress. Neil will be going to DC this week, and he's going to be walking into some of these offices that he's been communicating with to try to get us the necessary credentials to get into the White House as a press reporter, Capitol Hill. So, folks, we're doing all we can to bring you the truth and be there to ask the important questions and to cover the different congressional committees you know are going to be held on these kind of things, and to interview the newsmakers and members of Congress. I would think there might be a few members of the House that might have something to say about this. But do you think the mainstream media is going to interview many of them on this? Probably not. But I like to hear what some of them have to say. We need our own press guy there on the ground. But if you appreciate all the free shows we shove out, and then on Sunday nights, I'm teaching through the book of Revelation, verse by verse. This Sunday night, 8 p.m. Central, I'll be back at worldviewtube.com after the Christmas break, picking it up with Revelation chapter 11, verse 1. Folks, this fits right in with Bible prophecy, I think. I've already talked about it. We see it in Daniel, the book of Daniel, the Old Testament. We see it in the New Testament book, Revelation. The 10 horns or 10 kings who've not yet received a kingdom as of yet, at the time John was writing, but who will get a kingdom and will give their power to the Antichrist. Are we seeing the world divided into 10 regions? Who will then set it up and give it to a one world leader? That's what the Bible talks about. All we're doing here, folks, is trying to help you understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. We're not being dogmatic. We're not saying this is the 10 Union Federation, but it sure seems like it could be. But it certainly seems to be setting the stage for that in Bible prophecy. Now, do you think Fox News is going to do that? Do you think Newsmax is going to do that? No. This is a very unique network, and we need your support. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. We are looking for regular monthly contributors. Please consider doing that. Setting up an automatic monthly contribution, worldviewfoundation.com. Now, let me tell you another way that you can support us. Another way you can support us is by going to worldviewtube.com/vault. Let me go there, worldviewtube.com/vault. This is where we have archived over 20 years of my radio shows and TV shows. Now, I've been doing this as a professional broadcaster since 1995. My first book came out in 1990. The reality is a lot of my stuff is in here going back to the 90s. Okay? And it's archived here. Radio shows, TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks. And you can search North American Union. You can search globalism, the book of Revelation. There's so much in here. Okay? And if you want to get access to all this, worldviewtube.com/vault for as little as $95.88 a year, $9.99 a month. But we also are doing live streaming special events. We live streamed our Ozarks conference for members only, like 10 presentations that was live streamed from the Ozarks for members only back in November 1st of last year. Coming up on February 22nd, that's a Saturday night, here in the Mid-South, we're renting a theater, and in the theater, we will have a live audience with Colonel Rob Maness, J.J. Carroll, and Todd Bensman. We're going to talk about national security, our border crisis, and the enemies among us, among other things. That will be for live streaming members only. That's a bonus. To say thank you for joining and supporting us. We'll be doing more exclusive interviews, as we already have, just for Vault members. Please consider joining by going to worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. Now, one more little plug I want to do here. This, as you know, is something I take each and every day, Bella Grace. It is a powerful elixir with 3 powerful ingredients, collagen with the peptides cut short, and the hair growth. It works. And my hands are not cracked and bleeding like they were. That's because apparently Dr. Mark says it's helped my gut health, because there's a strong connection between gut health or a leaky gut and your skin cracking and bleeding, right? Psoriasis. So when my gut healed up from taking this, because that's all I did differently, cracking and bleeding stopped in my hands. That had been going on for years and years and years. I haven't taken a Pepcid since December of 2023. Again, gut health. So you got collagen, cat's claw, that's a powerful anti-inflammatory, and astaxanthin. That's loaded with antioxidants to take on the free radicals, and that crosses the brain-blood barrier so that collagen and everything gets into your system, whereas studies show most of the cheap collagen people take, 95% of it goes right down the tubes in the toilet. So this has 80 clinical trials behind it. You join in January here, and you get it for $99 a month. If you join in January, $99 a month. MelissaHouseBG.com, MelissaHouseBG.com. All right, 80 clinical trials, folks. So check out the 80 clinical trials. They also have a Bella Grace skincare that my wife Melissa is crazy about. You can click that, find out about that, which includes a cleansing, a treatment, a replenish. She and a lot of you gals are interested in that. It has a weight loss management to curb your appetite. It's plant-based. You can find out about that. All of this is through Bella Grace at MelissaHouseBG.com, MelissaHouseBG.com. All right, joining me now is, thank you for letting me do that, folks, because this is how we support and keep this network going. Joining me now is Patrick Wood of Technocracy.news, Technocracy.news, Leo Holman, associate producer with us here. And he is the author of the book Stealth Invasion that came out in 2017. And his website is leoholman.com and leoholman.substack.com. All right, gentlemen, let's go back to our PowerPoint presentation I built early this morning. And here we have the technate of America. And look, it goes all the way down there to take in Central America and the Panama Canal. Now, notice something, guys. I don't know if you picked up on this. Vicente Fox, in his interview with Larry King, what did he say? One of the things he said was, well, we were well on our way until Hugo Chavez did his thing, right? So, technocrats do not work well with communists. In fact, we learned today in our studies this morning that in the 1930s, the communists were not allowed. The communists were not allowed. In fact, I even have a picture of it here. Let's see. There you go. Look at this. Technocrats, best minds pitch into a world problem. Left to right. Professor M. King of Columbia University. You'll find out more about him. William Knight, Howard Scott, head of Technocracy, Inc. That's what they called it in the 30s, Technocracy, Inc. Remember, Technocracy is scientists, technicians, computer people, engineers, the best and the brightest, they say. Really, they're the ones running the government and the world, not the politicians. That's Technocracy. And it included Ernest Howell at the All-American Technological Congress in Chicago. Now look what it says there in small print. Communists, by action taken yesterday, are barred. They didn't allow the communists. Now notice Hugo Chavez, guys, was saying to Larry King that Vicente Fox was saying to Larry King that Hugo Chavez kind of disrupted things. You know, don't be shocked if they don't find a reason for our military to go in and take out the current leader of Venezuela and see a regime change there. Comment, please, Patrick.
Yeah, exactly. You know, this business of not including communists or Marxists in their organization, they also did not include politicians. Anybody that talked about being a politician or being elected, they were not allowed to join the organization, period, of subject, and a subject. And so here you have two major groups, politicians and the Marxists and the communists and socialists. They couldn't join the movement, period. They totally excluded them.
If I could add something to that, it just crossed my mind as Patrick was saying that. The reason they would have said that in 1932 was because they did not have a mechanism to control elections. And it was possible to actually have real elections. in the 21st century, we have voting machines and other technological inventions that weren't around in 1932 that gives big tech and whoever it is, I don't even like to use the word big tech because whoever is in control of these things, it gives them a window into the voting process. And we've seen through Mike Lindell and numerous other researchers over the last few years that there is numerous ways to influence these numbers as they are en route. Even if the numbers originally coming from the voting machines are accurate, they can be manipulated as they are en route from one venue to another, like when they go from the local county level to the state capitol, and then somewhere else to be counted in batches and whatnot. There's countless opportunities for these things to be intercepted en route and messed with, manipulated. And so now the technocrats are able to have their cake and eat it too. They can have these so-called men of the people or women of the people, politicians, who are the front men for their policies. When Fauci said, "I am the science," he left no question as to who was in charge of the nation's policies at that point in time. And it wasn't President Trump. It was the technocrats.
Now, notice again that the vote was there in the 30s in their little conference that barred communists. Patrick Wood is on record for many, many years. Patrick and I didn't know each other until a few years ago, and yet Patrick and I were writing some of the same things. Leo and I were writing some of the same things, and we didn't know each other, right? Patrick has been warning for years, we're not going to global communism. If you go back and read my book from 2016 and my book from 2011, 2011 was called, 2009. 2009, I wrote a book called Grave Influence, 2009. In that book, then the next book, this is a trilogy, Grave Influence in 2009, 2011, Religious Trojan Horse, and 2016, The Coming Religious Reich, Reich meaning empire or kingdom. In these books, I talk about how communism will be used to cause people to accept communitarianism, big government, big business merging. And my audience knows for years I've said what? That people are going to be so sick and tired of the Marxism, they will run into the arms of the technocrats thinking that this is so much better. I'll take what they're offering. This is the Hegelian dialectic. Thesis and antithesis. Idea, opposite idea. Let them fight, fight, fight. Communism and the free market. No free speech, free speech, right? Redistribution of wealth, private property. Let these things fight, fight, fight until you have a third option, which is going to be communitarianism. Big government, big business comes together and people will say, that I'll take that. And we all, and the masses will agree, well, we'll go with that. We love technology. We're tired of the crime. We want freedom cities. We want freedom cities where these criminals can't get into our cities. So we'll take that. But you needed the crime to get that. We're tired of the shoplifting and that you have to shop behind glass. But you needed the crime and the shoplifting and the burning and looting to get people to say, we'll go to a central bank digital currency. We'll go to biometrics. So now the criminals can't shoplift because they can't even get into the store. If they don't have one of these on their person, the door won't even open for them to come in. So you set up the crisis and then you offer the solution. And so I wrote in this book in 2009, 2011, 2016, communism will be used to get people to accept what they would never accept, which is communitarianism. Another word for that would be technocracy. Would you agree with that, Patrick?
Let me tell you that you just made the case for Zbigniew Brzezinski in his book, Between Two Ages, America's Role in the Technotronic Era. That's the book that endeared him to David Rockefeller in the first place when they formed the Trilateral Commission. He said in that book, and by the way, Brzezinski was not a communist. He hated communism, just like a true technocrat would have from his day. And when he said that Marxism, he called it, he said it's a maturing of man's universal vision. And then he said that it'll be a stepping stone to get to the technotronic era, which is a technocratic era. He said it's going to be a stepping stone to get to this final stage of where we are today. You just made the case. Exactly. This is exactly, I think, what he was thinking in 1968 when he wrote that book. By the way, he was at Columbia University when he wrote that book. He's a professor of political science. Columbia University is where technocracy started in 1932. He would have been completely privy to what was going on at that time.
Now, Leo, that's excellent. Thank you, Patrick. Leo mentioned big tech. Do you guys find it kind of interesting that now we have Peter Thiel of PayPal greatly influencing J.D. Vance? We have Elon Musk, his grandfather is about to see was into this in the 1930s, influencing this administration. And all of a sudden, you have all of these corporations saying, you know what, we want to rethink DEI. I saw today a list of all these companies are getting rid of DEI. We decided we're not going to go the communist, cultural Marxist route. What? And now you have Mr. Zuckerberg of Facebook or Meta. I think he just gave $1 million to Donald Trump's inauguration committee, right? And now he's like, yeah, I think we're all for getting rid of the fact checkers. Listen to this, folks. Here we go. Watch this.
Hey, everyone. I want to talk about something important today because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers.
We're going to get rid of the fact checkers
and replace them with community notes similar to
I don't know why it's spinning today, but
X, starting in the US. After
I don't know why it's spinning, but it is
first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith
really?
to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth.
Really? And I'll stop that. I have no idea why it's spinning, but it is a 5-minute, 17-second clip.
Brannon.
But reality is, this guy I believe this guy destroyed so many people's organizations, people that had worked for years to build up their following, and their companies and broadcasts were demonetized and audience taken away, and they were done. Now, that's why, folks, I never built my audience around Twitter or Facebook or YouTube. I told my family years ago, I'm not doing that because those guys can pull the rug out from underneath you. So people are always like, why aren't you pushing social media more and broadcasting more? No, I want people going to worldyoutube.com. And Leo, you know that I've told you that for years, right? That I was not going to use these platforms as my home base because they could just cancel you. And yet now all of a sudden this guy's doing I'm sorry, we tried in good faith, but we were wrong. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it at all. But isn't it interesting now all the technocrats, all the technicians, all the smart guys in the room are going to now rally around together for free speech and who knows what else, including they're going to give $1 million to Trump's. I think he's giving $1 million to Trump's inauguration committee. I mean, what? This is weird.
Really
he was the Antichrist. He was Hitler reincarnate by a lot of these guys. Now they want to go to Mar-a-Lago and have dinner with him.
Yes. It just shows you how shows you how phony all of this DEI stuff was in the first place. It was all an act, basically. Yes. It was promoted by a certain group of people for sure, but in the end of it, it was just an act because all of a sudden it's gone. It's disappeared from corporations, major corporations. I saw, what was it, Southwest Airlines or one of the airlines just came up and made a big statement the other day. And you see almost every day some major corporation is making a statement. We're not going to do that anymore. Universities are doing the same thing. We're not going to do that anymore. All of a sudden, the Marxist influence is just poof, it's gone.
Leo, were you going to say something?
Well, Patrick is right. I mean, there's exceptions. Starbucks came out yesterday and said they're going to continue to go full bore ahead with DEI. Well, let's see what happens to their brand.
Exactly.
But, yeah, I mean, because they're going to try to go against the grain. Right now, the flow, the momentum, if this was a sporting event, is with ditching DEI, because Patrick is exactly right. They never, ever needed DEI to get their ultimate agenda in. DEI was never part of their ultimate agenda, nor is, transvestites dancing around naked with children. I mean, they don't need those things to get the New World Order. Those were just put in place as stepping stones to get people psychologically ready for the next step. Like you said, Brannon, after a taste of Marxism for a few years, which we had under this current administration of Joe Biden, people are going to be more than ready to take the next step, which ditches some of those more unsavory elements of cultural Marxism, which were never part of the ultimate agenda, just meant to drive us to the closer to the ultimate agenda, which is technocracy. Technocracy does not need DEI. Technocracy does not need the whole LGBTQ obsession in order to thrive and catapult us into this fourth industrial revolution and all the stuff that Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates and the rest of them are talking about.
And you know how many people are on social media yesterday, the last 24 to 48 hours saying, we are so back. We are so back. I'm like, you morons, you have no idea. You are so excited that we are so back, but you have no idea that this is a globalist setup, and we need to pray for Donald Trump to have discernment and don't be led astray like they did to you with COVID, with Warp Speed, Deborah Birx, Mike Pence, Fauci. Be very careful and pray for Mr. Trump to have discernment. But these people on social media, they don't know what technocracy is, transhumanism. They don't know what communitarianism is. And yet we're so back. It's amazing that people on social media that speak with such authority that could not keep up with a conversation that the folks in this audience could keep up with because they've spent years here being our student, right? As peer students.
And they don't know the destination, Brannon.
No.
They don't know the destination.
But boy, are they ready to jump on the train to wherever it's going without asking where, right?
Exactly. They're not aware that it's heading towards fourth industrial revolution and the surveillance state.
And yet they would say they're opposed to Klaus Schwab and the WEF, but they're jumping on the train to his destination. Now,
they don't realize there's more than one path to that same destination.
That's right. So here are some of these transhumanists or technocrats, I should say, sitting in front of that map that we were showing you, right? The technate of America, right? Now, here they are, sitting in front of that map. They've been talking about this a long time, guys. Now, this is their own flow chart. And I promise you, we're still going to get to Elon Musk's grandfather because he was a part of this in the 1930s. This is their own chart. Notice what you have at the top. The Continental Director. Now, another word for that might be your Prime Minister, your North American Prime Minister, the Prime Minister of North America. You have a European Union, right? And you get your President of the European Union. You get your President of the North American Union. And you end up with these 10 unions. Again, remember, I've shown you the maps from the Club of Rome, from the United Nations, from the European Commission for years, dividing the world into 10 regions. In fact, a few weeks ago, we talked and we were quoting from John Stormer's book, None Dare Call It Treason, where some of the George H. Bush people were pushing for a parliamentary system in America. A parliamentary system in America. Because they didn't want They wanted whoever won the White House could control all of the government. So many Republicans are on board with this, by the way. But go back to the flow chart. Your continental director would be like your president of the North American Union or the European Union. Then you have your continental board. This could be like a North American parliament, if you will. Then you have your armed forces. Then you have your continental research, your social relations, and your foreign relations. Then you have your industrial functions, transportation, communication, agriculture, textiles, metalworks, chemicals, electronics, space tech. Oh, you mean like SpaceX? Matter recovery, construction. Then you have your area board, and your area board goes all the way down to the local level. And then you have your service functions, education, public health, recreation, mechanical, hospitality, transportation, electronic, creative, matter collection, and distribution. So they've already laid this all out, Patrick. This is their own drawings from the 1930s.
It is. And remember, you don't see any possibility for elected officials in that org chart. That's an organization chart. In fact, this is very similar to any advanced organization chart you would see from any corporation.
Yep.
Big, like Amazon, for instance. They have an org chart, as it's called. All the people from the president or the chairman of the board or whatever, all the way down to the lowest person on the totem pole. This is a very common thing in the corporate world. But to think that they would want to run the whole technate. Remember, they were talking about the North American technate at that point. They wanted to have everybody replaced, all politicians replaced. That was their proposition. That was the 100% deal that, like you talked about Trump, throw the whole thing out, let people argue over it. Maybe we won't end totally to have an org chart like this today, but you see the antipathy that these people had against politicians in the first place. They didn't want any politician. They figured they were all useless and they were just stupid. And they had nothing to add to the discussion because, after all, they were the smart ones. They're the ones that have the PhDs and the engineering degrees and stuff like that. They had the science on their side. And they figured, well, what's to discuss? There's nothing to discuss. We have the answers here, guys. Just do what we say, and life will be good for you.
And by the way, in this book I wrote in 2016, The Coming Religious Reich, subtitled Exposing the Sinister Influences Sweeping the Globe Toward a Satanic Global Empire, because Reich means Empire Kingdom. You can get this whole PDF, 600 pages and footnoted. If you're a member of our vault, you get it for free. The PDF is there. You don't need to buy anything. It's there. worldviewtube.com/vault. In this book, I lay some of this out. And I lay out the North American Union, as I said, the Club of Rome, the United Nations, and the European Commission. A North American Union, a Central America and Caribbean Union, a South America Union, a Western European Union, a Eastern Europe and Central Asia Union, 6, a Mediterranean Middle East Union, 7, an African Union, 8, a Northeast and South Asia Union, 9, a Southeast Asia Union, and 10, Australia and Pacific Union. So again, this is where we're headed. But again, most people don't understand this. That's why we're doing this show, taking the whole night to do it, with Technocracy.news host Patrick Wood and Leo Holman of leoholman.com. Now look at this. This is from, again, their own websites. Marion King, I guess you say Hubert. And now he was in, is that right, Hubert? He was involved in this.
I say Hubbard.
You say Hubbard? Okay. This was back in the 1930s. Okay. He attended the University of Chicago, where he obtained his degree in triple majors in 1929, and goes on from there and all the things he did. He's one of the guys involved in this, right? This is his book, Technocracy, Technology and Social Design. Tell me about this book, Patrick.
This was the Bible of technocracy. This was the study course that they produced. In fact, I have a copy of it here on my desk. This is exactly the cover, and this is the book they produced to elevate technocracy across the country and Canada as well. This book is I think it has about 280 pages, something like that, and this spelled out every possible tenet that technocracy wanted to achieve. And basically, it was scientific engineering of the whole society, everything from top down.
Now, again, this is in the book, The Coming Religious Reich, I wrote in 2016, because I want to get you guys to respond to this, because it all fits together. On page 77 of this book, I write about the European Union and the supra-religion. And the real father of the European Union, because this is where they started, folks, the European Union, which was the common market, right? And by the way, Henry Spake of the common market said that the world is in such a mess. We need a man of sufficient stature to hold the allegiance of the people, and be he God or devil, will receive him. You guys remember that quote?
Yep.
Wow. So you get your common market, and they did it all based on trade. Oh, it's just about trade. Oh, just about trade. And that was a lie, okay, to get the people to go along with it. And they ended up with the European Union, right? And then, of course, Brexit. People are like, we're out of here. We don't want to be a part of this. So, and that has never really gone away, by the way, just so people know. But the father of the European Union is a guy by the name of Jean Monnet. Jean Monnet. You're shaking your head yes, Patrick. You know all about Jean Monnet, don't you, Patrick?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And he lived from 1888.
Most of the people, by the way, most of the people who were instrumental in creating the Union and ultimately the whole of the European Union, they were all members of the Trilateral Commission. Go figure.
Yep, go figure.
By the way, that was David Rockefeller wrote that in his memoirs. He said, "Yep, they were the ones that did it."
Yeah, he took credit. Well, Jean Monnet, who is considered the father of the European Union, he laid out the roadmap for other unions. He said this in 1943, quote, "There will be no peace in Europe if the states are reconstituted on the basis of national sovereignty. The countries of Europe are too small to guarantee their peoples the necessary prosperity, social development. The European states must constitute themselves into a federation," end quote. Sound familiar, folks? People are saying, America is too small to do this on our own. We've got to add these other countries to bolster our population, our taxation, our natural resources, our money, and our military. Well, Jean Monnet, the father of the European Union, had a 5-step plan. You ready for it, folks? Ready? Because this is what they're going to do here in America, and they're doing this already. Number 1, economic free trade partnerships. Oh, that's all George W. Bush and the the Prime Minister of Canada and the Vicente Fox of Mexico were doing in Waco with Heidi Cruz, Ted Cruz's wife. That's all they were doing there. Wasn't Ted Cruz's wife a part of that? That's the George W. Bush administration on this. I write about it in this book. That's all they're doing is free trade. Well, Monnet says you start with step 1. And isn't that what you also heard Vicente Fox say? Well, it's really just about fair trade. The Amero, or a common currency, that's down the road. Number 1, economics, free trade partnership. 2, open borders, shared citizenship, and monetary system. I contend, my opinion, you will not see millions of illegals sent back. You will see the criminals go back, those convicted of drugs, rape, sex crimes, violent crimes, gone. What you'll see is the push for biometrics, as we started documenting here on television in 2020, when the United Nations held ID 2020 at the UN, and the World Bank and the Bank for International Settlements and all these groups were saying we need biometrics to track who's coming and going, and for their payments so they're not double dipping on their entitlement programs, and for travel and to fight terrorism. It's always safety and prosperity. We need biometrics. You watch. They're not going to deport, I don't think, millions and millions and millions of illegals. They'll deport the criminals, because number 2 is open borders, shared citizenship, and a monetary system. 3, external security partnership through solidarity and foreign policy. 4, internal security, common rule of law and enforcement. So you'll end with North American laws and a North American court. 5, total control by supra government of human rights and social progress. So you'll end up with these different unelected committees that will be telling us what it is we can and cannot do. What do you think of the 5 steps here that just laid out by the father of the European Union, Jean Monnet?
Perfect.
Leo, or
Perfect.
Patrick? Go ahead, Patrick.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. He's said it very clearly, and I think that's the steps that they're going to take. Exactly.
Leo?
100%. You can see it. I mean, they already have the model for it, the EU. It's followed that same pattern. And starting with just economic free trade and ending with the common bureaucracies, courts, military, everything, the whole thing. Oh, and of course the currency.
Now, this is, again, going back to the talk about urbanites from the 1930s.
Yes.
Look at this. Here we go.
Yes.
Once a technate, as they call it, has been established, Technocracy Incorporated, this group from the 30s that included Elon Musk's grandfather. Once the Technocracy Incorporated, that's what they call their group, Technocracy Incorporated, create this technate. Once the technate has been established, Technocracy Incorporated advocates for a form of living environment called urbanites. Urbanates. Now listen, what do you think this sounds like? As I read it, you ask yourself, what does that sound like? An urbanite is essentially an assembly of buildings where people live and work. These places would have all the facilities needed for a community, including schools, hospitals, shopping malls, waste management, recycling facilities, sports centers, and public areas. Technocrats plan for urbanites to be something akin to resorts, designed to give each citizen the highest standard of living possible. Getting around in an urbanite would be inherently easy and efficient. Urbanites would be connected via a continent-wide transportation network envisioned by Technocracy, which would involve a high-speed rail network linking every urbanite. This is like the NAFTA superhighway, by the way, coming to America. The continental hydrology, a canal network, and airport transport. By the way, they're doing this through Iraq right now. It's called the FAW Port, F-A-W, FAW Port. We've been reporting on that now for about 3 years. It is going to transform Iraq. I personally think it'll transform Babylon, and the Bible describes Babylon as a center for world government in Revelation 17 and 18, 58 miles south of Baghdad. And now you got a multi-billion-dollar canal for transportation and trade that says it'll be one of the biggest in the world, if not the biggest, running right by Babylon. So this is going on in various regions of a part of these 10 federations they're building, I believe. So the canal network. The systems would also be connected to the Technate's industrial sites for easy transport of goods to consumers and to all recreation and vacation areas of the continent. The reason given by Technate advocates for all this ambitious restructuring of urban life is that modern cities are often extremely poorly planned and built in a haphazard way, leading to major inefficiencies, waste, and environmental problems. Technocrats propose that rather than trying to solve these problems within the framework of existing cities based on current economic or price system agendas, new living constructs would reflect new values in a non-monetary system. Now, there's multiple questions here, but number one, what does that sound like to you, Leo? What do these urbanates sound like? Maybe the 15-minute city? Freedom cities?
The urbanates within the technates will be living in nothing more than a 15-minute city, which they describe as what? A resort. Wasn't it the Brave New World author who said that the perfect dictatorship would be one in which the slaves living in the dictatorship could not imagine any other type of lifestyle, and that they would actually choose to be slaves rather than be forced into their slavery. So that is a paraphrase, not a direct.
They would love their servitude. They would love
exactly.
Love their servitude.
And they would love their servitude. Thank you, Brannon. And so that's what I see being described there in that little document.
Now, notice he says here, Patrick, technocrats propose this rather than trying to solve these problems, but they would live in these constructs and they would reflect the new values in a non-monetary system. And they would be based on, of existing cities, based on economic or price system agendas. So in other words, technocrats propose rather than trying to solve these problems within the framework of existing cities based on current economic or price system agendas. That's what they called it in the technocrat world. They called this a price system agenda. So they want to do away with the system. You always got these communists talking about burn down the system, do away with the system. But the technocrats want to do away with the current system as we have as well. So they always refer to the free market system as the price system, but they want to go to, as it says there, a non-monetary system. What would their non-monetary system look like, Patrick?
Here's the deal. This is very easy to understand, I think. When you take away the availability of resources from the people, where people do not have access to resources, and everything is going to be supplied to them from the people who have resources. There's no supply and demand.
So you're talking about universal basic income, it sounds like.
Well, that too, but that was what they proposed, universal basic income in the 30s. But this business of the price-based economic system, that goes away when you have all the resources owned by a few people. This is what's happening today in the world, unmistakably.
Now, this would also stop wars.
All the resources of the world have been accumulated to a few people, a few organizations,
and countries.
They're not gonna,
and countries.
Yes.
And this would be a way to stop wars.
Yes.
What was he, a 3 or 4 star general, Smedley Butler? Wasn't he 3 or 4 stars? Look that up, Logan. How many stars did Smedley Butler have? I think he had like 4 stars. Logan will tell me. He said all wars were fight for corporations. All wars were fought, I should say. All wars were fought for corporations, right? So a lot of these wars for resources, right? So Lindsey Graham's already spilled his guts and said that what's going on in Ukraine is about not letting Russia get a hold of all those resources in the ground, right?
Yes.
Afghanistan was about resources, right? And of course, China's in there grabbing up what they need for all their batteries and blah, 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 right? So this would also supposedly be the way they stop world wars, because now you would take away the ability to fight over those resources, right, Patrick?
That's right. Yeah. That was part of their. They didn't do it because people would not get killed necessarily, but the lust to accumulate all the resources in the world has been an age-old dream by dictators over the centuries. It is made possible now because of technology, mostly, and these technocrats rose up to deliver into the hands of people like David Rockefeller, who wanted to get all the resources. He saw this is the way we can do it, and they've done it at this point, and it's continuing to this day. For instance, consider if we got our hands on Canada, the United States already owns 620 million acres of our land. They shouldn't, but they do. If somehow we could get our hands on Canada, just guess how much acres that the Crown owns in Canada. 2.2 trillion acres. What? That's incredible. I mean, the land mass is just amazing in Canada. So, not trillion, excuse me, 2.2 billion acres. That's three times more than we have in America right now. Incredible.
2.2, 2.2 very resource-rich billion acres.
Oh, no kidding. And energy efficient as with all the hydropower that they have.
Mm-hmm.
That's something.
And it really does. This could be a brilliant move by Trump. If his goal, I'm not saying it's brilliant from a biblical prophetic perspective. Of course, we know it's dangerous. But if his goal is to somehow get us to avert World War III with Russia by saying, you know what, Russia, you can have your resources. We're not going to steal them like President Biden wanted to, but we're going to develop and expand our own resources. We're going to drill here at home, and we're going to annex Canada. We're going to annex the Panama Canal. We're going to annex Greenland, and we're going to amass such a land-rich area filled with natural resources that we no longer need to control Russia's resources or China's resources. We'll have our own access to our own resources. I think that may be what's going on in Trump's mind. We'll find out, I think, shortly, maybe where he's going with this.
Yeah, and I think Smedley Butler had 2 stars. I think it was a major general, 2 stars. All right, so let's keep going through our PowerPoint presentation here, folks. Okay, so one of the other guys who was in charge of this in the 30s, look at this. Howard Scott was an engineer, founding member of Technical Alliance and Technocracy, Inc. He was a chief engineer of both organizations and remained in that position in Technocracy Inc. until his death, Howard Scott, all right? And here he is. Look what it says. By the early 1930s, Scott was working with a small group that included Frederick Ackerman, M. King Hubbard, who we already talked about already, and Dale Hitchcock. The work so far conducted was present to Professor Walter Rothenstock, whom arranged the continuation of the Energy Survey and the reforming of Technical Alliance at Columbia University. So that's what Patrick was telling us earlier, coming out of Columbia. Now, take a look at this. Here's some of their books. Look at that one in the middle, the Technocracy Digest. If you want prosperity, just take money out of the system. Now, isn't that interesting? Yeah, well, if you want money, right. If you want prosperity, just take money out of the system. So they're creating a whole new non-monetary system, and they can tokenize everything. And if you want money, you just take it out of the tokenized system. Is that what I'm hearing, Patrick?
Well, you see this in modern rhetoric for sure, but the idea that they had in their mind back then was money was that represented resources. If you don't have access to the resources in the first place, you don't have supply and demand. They figured that because of supply and demand, it had all kinds of inefficiencies in the market and basically just went from boom to bust all the time. They wanted to get all of that ripple effect out. So they said, well, we'll just control all the resources, then we won't have to worry about supply and demand at all. We'll control everything, and we'll make sure everybody gets their fair share. In fact, that's exactly what they said. Everybody will get their fair share of continental wealth, they said.
So instead of nationalizing resources, what you're doing is you're globalizing it.
That's right.
But you could say now that if you want prosperity, just take money out of the system. That would be the way to now take hard assets, land, houses, cars, and tokenize it on a sheet. And then when you need money, you take it out of the system that has been this new system where everything is tokenized, right?
It is, but remember the money that you might spend on anything is going to be in other words, you'll be limited to what you can buy with that money because they're controlling all the resources in the first place.
Mm-hmm. But this would go back to the great, what is it called? The great, what is that documentary we watched? The Great Taking, Leo? The Great Taking?
Yeah.
Part of it, yeah. Yeah, mm-hmm. you could see, you can see how that could happen. This has been set up for a long time. It's not something brand new for sure. But the condition that Klaus Schwab talks about, you'll know by 2030 you'll own nothing. Be happy. You won't be happy, obviously, but you won't own nothing
because they're going to tokenize everything.
Somebody has to own it. That's my point. Somebody has to own it. It's not going to be you, and it's not going to be me.
Look at this. This is a Technocrat magazine, the Technocrats magazine, 1933. 30 million out of work in 1933, or $20,000 a year income for every family. Which? ? So that's your universal basic income, right?
Yes.
Here we go. Science versus Chaos by Howard Scott, 1933. Now, this, I don't know who put this grid together, but whoever did it did a great job. They're showing how this all works. You got the Amazon Web Service, the Google Cloud. You have Google to buy nuclear power for AI data centers and world first deal. You have China's Agabot 1,000 strong humanoid robot army to beat Elon Musk Optimus. They're basically showing you artificial intelligence, the cloud brain. You got your Neuralink, your digital currencies. This is everything combined. This is how the system is going to run. Everything will be. It really reminds me a lot of what you see with the World Economic Forum, that you have to have a digitized ID to get involved in this system. Leo?
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal. When I said earlier in the show it was to digitize humanity, that involves tracking and tracing and assigning a social credit score to all human behavior. But you can't do that until you get to the point of having a biometric digital ID that you can attach to all human beings. as well as a digitized money system, which is not just digital, but programmable. And now you've got a system where you can punish financially those who are in the system with their digital biometric ID for misbehaving. For, they'll no longer need to really overtly censor us. They will force us to self-censor ourselves because, who will want to have their bank account frozen? Who will want to have their money reprogrammed so that it now no longer allows them to do what they want or spend it on what they want, but they can only spend it on essentials of food, or maybe even they could cut you off from food at some point if you don't behave. So this is the social credit system. Now, I do find it interesting that Elon Musk, who's supposed to be a paragon of free speech, is suddenly coming out with a new social credit scoring system on X. Isn't that interesting? So it's funny
What is that called?
Well, it's going to be powered by, I believe, Tesla's new AI system, which is called Grok. It is 10 times more powerful, I'm told, than the one by Chat GPT, the Open AI system, and they are training it right now and getting ready to roll it out.
Now, is that the supercomputer built in my backyard here in Memphis?
You got it.
There you go.
Which, by the way, Memphis happens to be named after Memphis, Egypt. And we have our own pyramid here. Bass Pro is in the pyramid. It used to be a basketball arena. Now we have the pyramid. So we're kind of, you start studying Egyptian gods and whatnot, and you start thinking, wow, it's kind of weird. We don't have the Nile, but we have the Mississippi, and they need that water to cool this system and build it right here in Memphis, Tennessee. It's just kind of, you start going back to the history of Egypt and Egyptian gods and what's going on, and it starts kind of getting a little weird. But look at this, Speaking of weird.
And one other thing, Brandon, if you remember that game Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah.
That was a big thing in like the 80s.
Yep.
And early 90s. I guess it still is for a lot of people. There's a demon in that game called Gronk.
Are you serious? Grok?
I think it's spelled a little different, Gronk, but it's not far off from Grok, the AI program for Tesla.
So the system that he's building, which could be the system that runs the world, and then you add all of his satellites to it, right? Patrick, this is being built just a few miles from where I'm sitting right now. Is that weird or what?
I'd be scared. not just. You could go down and look at it anytime you want. I can't do that.
Yeah, I can. It's built at the old building, Electrolux. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it's just a few miles. It's 15, 20 miles away.
That's a vacuum cleaner company, right?
Yeah. Now instead of sucking up your dirt, now they're going to suck up all your data.
Yes. Let me just make a point from the technocracy study course. Okay, you talk about ID. This is requirement number 5. They only had 7 requirements to achieve technocracy. This is number 5. By the way, do you think Elon Musk might have had a copy of the technocracy study course somewhere in his life? You think? Just possibly?
Yeah.
About 50 copies laying around his house in South Africa? This is requirement number 5. Provide specific registration of the consumption of each individual plus a record and description of the individual. That's it. Direct quote.
Now, let me bring in his father or his grandfather. Let's bring his grandfather in. Here's an article. Yes. Here's an article. This was written out of Canada, okay? A group out of Canada, the Central Broadcasting out of Canada. It's called In Science We Trust. Subtitled, back in the first half of the 20th century, a group called Technocracy Incorporated wanted to reorganize society by putting scientists in charge. The movement flamed out, but its underlying message still appeals to many in Silicon Valley. Dated June 28th, 2021. Now listen to this. So you see the logo top left, CBC News. I think that's Canadian Broadcasting.
Yeah.
Technocracy Incorporated was not a political movement. In fact, politicians or members of political parties were not allowed to join. It was founded in New York City in 1933 as an educational and research organization promoting a radical restructuring of political, social, and economic life in Canada and the United States with science as its central operating principle. Now go down to the bottom. Joshua Haldeman was a leader of Technocracy Incorporated in Canada from 1936 to 1941, but eventually became disillusioned with both the organization and the country and packed up his young family to start a new life, life anew in South Africa. In June of 1971, Haldeman's daughter gave birth to his first grandson. His name is Elon Musk. Yeah. Is this not crazy or what? And of course, the Bible also tells us that what's coming is a system that no one will be able to buy or sell if they have the mark. We also know that Branson, that Bill Gates, we've done full TV shows on this. They're all working together to create a carbon credits, right? A new way to offset your carbon footprint. You have to buy carbon credits. This is all a part of that non-monetary system, is it not?
Yes. Yes, it is. Absolutely, positively. And it's all based on energy. Carbon represents energy.
All right, I want to pause right there, and then we're going to wrap it up because I got some things, including something President Trump announced today about funding of AI.
Yes.
It all fits together, folks. So much has happened today. January 7th, 2025. So much has happened today. Most people cannot connect the dots. But that's what we do here. Well, I've been doing this for 35 years. Patrick, how many years you been doing this, Patrick?
Oh, somewhere over 45.
Yeah. And Leo, you've been doing this how many years, Leo?
Oh, gosh, somewhere around 20. Yeah.
So this is, we have a lot of people here with a lot of backgrounds that come together to give you this network with area of expertise. We don't all have the same area of expertise, so we all learn from each other. And if you appreciate what we're doing, again, we need your support. One way you can support us and your health, please go here, right here. Melissa Howse, Howse, Melissa Howse, GPA.com, stands for Global Plankton Alliance. We have a lower third for it. Who's in the control room now? I get the impression Logan's not behind the keyboard anymore. Is he? Guys? It's Reagan. See, I can always tell when Logan's not in there. Melissa Howse, GPA.com. All right, go there, please. This is a drink I take every day with my Bella Grace. One scoop is the equivalent of 90 billion plant cells. 90 billion plant cells, okay? 47% protein. It has all kinds of very important things you need. Let me just give you a real quick list of some of the things in it. 47% protein, which we need as we get older so we can maintain our muscle mass and not become scrawny and look like we're going to blow away with the wind. The way Joe Biden looks. If you don't want to look like Joe Biden and blow away in the wind, looks like he would if a strong wind. It looks like Piglet. Like a strong wind would come along and take him away, like in Winnie the Pooh or Piglet. You don't want to shrink up and shrivel as you get older. You need protein. This is 47% protein. Omega-3 fatty acids, omega-6 fatty acids, trace minerals, all your amino acids, vitamins like B6, C, D, K, zinc, fiber, magnesium, calcium, potassium, beta-carotene, iron, copper, zinc, and so much more. Okay, all these trace minerals. By the way, there are 5 trace minerals in here that are really good for your dog and your cat, all right? So again, nothing is added. There's nothing man-made added to this. It's pure. There are 5 clinical trials behind this as well, okay? There's the pet. Now, you can get the pet version if you want, or I just, every day, go to the Dolly cam, please. Every day I go and I give Dolly a scoop. A half a scoop goes to Dolly every morning on her food. There she is, sleeping comfortably. I don't give it to her at night or she wouldn't be sleeping comfortably. She'd be up and full of energy and ready to go. But I give it to her in the morning, and that helps with antioxidants and so much that our pets need. So you can take it and your pet can take it. Get a subscription now, like Melissa and I do. I take my Bella Grace every day, my Gatatana, and my Numi. MelissaHouseGPA.com, MelissaHouseGPA.com. Now, let's talk real quick about Numi. And I have a new website coming for Numi real quick here. NEUMI.com/house1. I have a new website coming, our own landing page. We'll be talking about that soon. But this is full of glutathione. Glutathione helps detox your cells. So all the garbage in the food, in the air, in the water, in the fabrics, all the toxins, all the forever chemicals, this helps to detox your cells, and it even helps to remove mercury. Now, if you don't want to shrivel up, you want plenty of protein so you don't look like Joe Biden, you need your Gatatana. Now, if you don't want to sound like Joe Biden, you need your glutathione, because this helps remove mercury from the brain, according to studies. It help you keep from getting dementia and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. So Numi.com/House1. Use that URL so we get credit. And we swish with this every day. Melissa and I do, twice a day. And within 90 seconds, glutathione, which has 162,000 studies on PubMed, it detoxes your cells. Glutathione is in your system within 90 seconds. It's better than an IV, which would cost you $250. And in the IV form, it gets broken down. It gets into your system in its totality when you swish it for 3 minutes, then swallow or spit it out. Numi.com/House1. Do what we do, Melissa and I, every day. We take our Numi, our Gatatana, and our Bella Grace. I'm 100 years old, but I don't look like I do it. Do I? No, I'm actually 55. 56 this year. So I want to stay looking young and healthy, and I do not want to end up in the medical industrial complex, folks. I do not. So stay healthy. Keep your system, your immune system boosted and up. Okay. Now I want to go real quick before we wrap up today to a couple new news stories. But first, take a look and listen to this, guys. Look at this video I found.
But what if Canada became the 51st state of the United States? If Canada joined the U.S., the flag would gain a 51st star, and the U.S. would become the largest country in the world, covering 19 million square kilometers, overtaking Russia. Canada's 40 million people would increase the U.S. population to 373 million, keeping it third in global rankings behind India and China. Economically, Canada's 2.9 trillion GDP would make it the third wealthiest state, just after California and Texas. The U.S. defense budget would grow by $26 billion, and American dominance in the Arctic would expand, reinforcing its global influence. However, this merger would spark international concerns. Russia could bolster its Arctic military presence, while China might have to rethink its strategies in the Pacific. Mexico, heavily dependent on the U.S., would face pressure to diversify its partnerships to maintain economic stability.
That's a pretty good little video, isn't it, Leo?
Yeah, that last part there about Mexico explains why Mexico would need to be included in maybe as the 52nd state, or just why not merge all three together in a North American Union, right?
Why not? Now look at this. Canadian politician responds to Trump's takeover threats by offering to buy 2 states. So this back and forth is started. It's going to keep going. Here's another one. Trump says he wants to rename the Gulf of Mexico. We talked about that. So these are some of the things in the news. Now, head on over to, pull that down, guys. I'm going to go on over to Worldview. Here it is. There it is. Look, our brand new Worldview report. we got that redone for the new year. But look at some of these articles, guys. Here's one by Gordon Chang. Will China start the next world war in the Panama Canal? Because China's all around the Panama Canal. Okay. Here's another one. Trump announces $20 billion foreign investment to build new U.S. data centers. Did you guys read about that today?
Yes.
And who's involved in this, Leo? Do you know who this guy is? Where's he from?
The United Arab Emirates.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes. And $20 billion for U.S. data centers, which will be used to power what? AI, artificial intelligence. So again, that benefits Elon Musk and the technocrats who need to expand the amount of these huge data centers, which will be vacuuming up all of our data and filtering it through their servers in these data farms. They take up literally, we've got 3 of them here ongoing, new ones in Georgia alone. Remember when Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, was heading off to Davos to attend the World Economic Forum meetings for 2 years in a row? Well, now we know why, because he's talking about making Georgia a hub, the United States hub for data centers, which will be powering AI into the future as we head into uncharted waters and creating this massive surveillance state. We've already talked about how Elon Musk is using it now to police his social media platform. Oh, and by the way, I was just reading during that commercial, Brannon, that Elon Musk is using the data from users on X to train Grok, which is his Grok 3, which will be replacing Grok 2, 10 times more powerful. And he's using data from X users to train this new artificial intelligence machining to get it up to speed. So by participating on X, you are actually helping to feed the beast and train Elon's new artificial intelligence program.
Wow. What do you make of all this, Patrick? $20 billion for AI, foreign investment, a guy from the United Arab Emirates.
Here you go. I know that this is a signal, I think, of this new trend, geopolitical trend called techno-populism. It's sweeping Europe right now. It's going to sweep Canada. It's already swept America, where technocrats are bonding with the populist movements. You see Elon Musk going all over the world now, sticking his nose into other countries' business. As the populist movement rises around the world, the whole thing risks being taken over by technocrats. End of subject. We'll see this possibly in Mexico as well. But hey, here's a great way to get rid of all the illegal immigrants here in America. Just co-opt Mexico and Central America especially to just join with us to be part of the North American Union, and all the immigrants can just stay here, or they can go in wherever they want. Go to Canada, go to Mexico.
As long they can go wherever they want, Patrick, as long as they are biometrically chipped.
That's right. There's no problem. That's the end of the problem at that point. You know, hey, you guys should stay because, hey, Mexico is just all in the family now.
All in the family. Now, let me show you something, guys, real quick. Go to the vault. Go to worldviewtube.com/vault. If you go to worldviewtube.com/vault, there's a program that was running there, old program. If you go there and you type in the vault, you'll see that you can join. But in the vault, one of the things you'll find is all my PowerPoints. So when they were just talking about that, you can go there and get the one on ID 2020 by the United Nations that we were telling you about in January or February of 2020, where the United Nations was wanting everybody to get biometric chipped so you wouldn't have to worry anymore about cross-border. You'd be biochipped. So this is not them speculating what you just heard them say. I have a full PowerPoint presentation, and you have lots and lots of my presentations in PowerPoint and Keynote that are available to you. We'll put this one up. This one you're seeing tonight is going to go in the vault for you guys to have, okay? But we have a whole PowerPoint with screenshots from the United Nations and all these reports and websites showing you exactly in 2020 what they were saying, which is what Patrick and Leo were saying. Folks, this is not hard to follow if you're willing to be the student. The problem is that a lot of people aren't even curious. Many people say, I don't want to know. Don't tell me about it. I don't even want to know. They're happy to be in their, bliss in their ignorance. Would you guys agree with that?
Well, that's why they say ignorance is bliss. It really isn't, but a lot of people believe it is.
Yeah, they believe it is.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, a lot of people, they figure if they're aware of what's going on, now they have a responsibility to do something about it. So they don't want to be put in that position of having to make sacrifices, make difficult decisions, not participate in some of these things. And so they would rather just remain ignorant.
Yeah, it's really sad. All right, so as we get ready to close, I think a lot of this is indeed helping to set the stage for Bible prophecy to be fulfilled, but also it's going to help set the stage for many things that you and I and others have predicted and talked about for years be fulfilled. And yet we were told that the talk of a North American Union was conspiracy. Patrick, closing comments on all this?
Yeah, it was a conspiracy. I'm probably one of the guys that got the whole conspiracy thing going in the first place when I wrote with Professor Anthony Sutton in 1978. The Trilateral Commission charged us with being conspiracy theorists in that day. I'm used to this at this point. I'm probably going to get hit again from this show especially. But you know what? It is what it is at this point. You can't deny the facts when you see them, and when you see this big picture, you'll never forget what you saw.
Now, Leo, we have been talking for so long about a massive terrorist attack in the country. Going again, if you go into the vault, type in the perfect day. It will bring up a program I did with Brad Thor, I think from 2007, 2008. That was where we were talking about multiple terrorist attacks in one day throughout the country, hitting soft targets like schools, sadly. We have been discussing this with Dave Gobbets, Usama Dekdok, Shahram Hadian, so many, for years. Now, all of a sudden, that little weasel, Mike Johnson, and some dude named Turner, some dude I talked about tonight on my Worldview Report, a congressman named Turner, Mike Turner, they all of a sudden, they all come out, all these little rats coming out from underneath their rat nest in a woodpile, want to come out and tell you Americans should need to be very concerned about ISIS being here for a multi-city attack in one day. Well, where were you, yellow-bellied coward scum, back years ago? Right? Now, isn't it ironic that all of a sudden that little weasel, the little Pee Wee Herman-looking Mike Johnson, I think that's what he is, little coward, no backbone. My wife said the other day, doesn't he just look like a politician? I mean, he's the epitome of typecasting of what a politician looks like. Well, he's come out and he's warning about a major terrorist attack. What does that have to do with what we're talking about? I'll tell you. Remember the Patriot Act? Listen first to what this weasel had to say.
FBI Director Chris Wray testified to Congress multiple times over the past year that all the red lights were flashing because we had the wide open border. Joe Biden and Mayorkas and the administration put out the welcome mat for everybody around the world. And President Trump's exactly right. They sent dangerous criminals here. We know have terrorists come across the border and all these violent criminals. They're here. They are among us now. And we believe there may be terrorist cells set up all around the country. We've seen acts of violence like that in recent days. And so this is something that must be addressed. We have to secure that border, and then we have to deal with the millions and millions of dangerous persons who have been allowed in over the last 4 years. That's what President Trump talks about, the deportations or the repatriation program. And it's going to be difficult, and it's going to be costly, but we have to do that to secure the homeland. And I think the American people demand and deserve that, and it's long overdue.
Yeah, and then you got Mike Turner talking about this as well all of a sudden. Where were they years ago, Leo? And let me tell you what they're setting us up for, I believe. A major terrorist attack and then biometrics to deal with the terrorism. Like 9/11 happened, and we got the Patriot Act. Kirby Anderson and I were on the air back then in 2001, 2002, whenever that rolled out, the Patriot Act. I don't know if it was that same year or the next year. When it rolled out, we were on the air criticizing it. We got called communist. We're not patriotic. Well, now we all know, all the people that, were out there spouting their opinion with no education or research of their own, telling us we were somehow unpatriotic because we were opposing the Patriot Act, because we're saying this is a civil liberties grab. They're going to do the same thing. You're going to see, God forbid, we're going to see an October 7th style event, and you watch the American people line up to get their biometrics that they'll use to say, we have to know who's here and be able to track them to prevent terrorism like we had. If we have an October 7th event, you watch people willingly give up their freedom for safety and security. Leo?
Oh, absolutely, Brannon. This is the MO of the globalists. They create the problem, and it's a real problem, but they don't tell us that it was their manufacturing of it. And then they scare people to death. They use the media to their advantage. And then they get the ultimate policy in place, which is always a trampling of civil liberties, always a shredding of the U.S. Constitution. We not only got the Patriot Act after 9/11, but we got the secret FISA court, which acts as essentially a star chamber that can secretly present evidence against somebody, and you can't argue in a public court of law to defend yourself. And before you know it, you're basically charged, tried, and convicted of terrorism when and this is totally un-American, totally unconstitutional, and it should have been abolished, but it never has been. They put it in place first temporarily, right? That's always the thing. We have an emergency here. We need these temporary measures, but then the temporary always becomes permanent. Almost nothing that came into place, tyrannical, authoritarian policies after a 9/11 were ever taken away or recused. They all stayed in place.
And notice, Patrick, they didn't do anything about all these problems. They did things they said was for our safety, but are we safer today? Did the Patriot Act make us safer? No. So all the things they said they were going to do to stop terrorism, they haven't done. And we have more terrorists among us now than ever before. And now these guys all of a sudden want to come out and tell you about it, which I think is a total covering of their rear end. So they can say, well, we were warning about it. Reality is they used the terrorism as part of the Hegelian dialectic. They allow this to happen. I think in some cases, our government encourages it and funds it, creates ISIS, creates Al-Qaeda, funds and gives billions of dollars to Iran. And then terrorist attacks happen, and then they use it to say, we can fix this problem. Just give us more of your liberties and freedoms. Patrick?
That's exactly right. We're going to see more achievement of territory in this technocratic sense this year, next year, combined from the last 20 years. This is going to be the day that technocracy rises up in America. And at this point, I'm very sad about this. On one hand, on the other hand, from a point of view of Bible prophecy, it's an exciting event.
Yeah. I told my wife today, I said, I love my job. And I'm excited about my broadcast today. And she said, well, why today? Why today? Why are you saying that today? I said, because what we're talking about today is not just news. It is showing us that we can trust the Bible. The Bible has told us these things are coming. Now, how they're all going to look and flesh out, I don't know. But we are going toward a world government. We're going to go to regional governments, and then we're going to go to world government. We're going to go to social credit scores. We're going to go to no man can buy or sell unless they have the mark. But here's one of the things I'll tell my audience tonight as we get ready to wrap here, guys. Even the Antichrist is going to have to go to war to get all this done. So the New World Order, the foundations are being laid for Bible prophecy to be fulfilled in the New World Order, as they call it. Their words, not mine. And by the way, isn't it interesting, guys? Let's go back to them on the screen. I want to see their faces here. Isn't it interesting? Leo, you just jumped up and left the room. Isn't it interesting that Alice Bailey, the occultist and New Ager, she's considered the mother of the New Age movement, talked about the New Order, the New World Order, was so tied in with the UN that she said in her book, one of her books over 100 years ago, that the New Order would start, you'd be able to see the outline of the New Order by 2025. She wrote that in her book. I have the screenshot in some of my presentations. By 2025, that was written 100 years ago. You'll be able to see the outline of the New Order coming into play. But to get the New World Order, folks, the Antichrist is going to have to show up on the scene. And you say, well, how do you know that, Brandon? Go with me to Daniel chapter 7, verse 8. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. Oh, you know what we got going on here, folks? The Antichrist is going to have to pluck out by the roots, some of these nations, Federation of Nations, 3 of them, to get the New World Order. So I'm here to tell you, my friends, that the New World Order is starting to come into shape. But I'm not planning on being here when it's fully implemented from my eschatology. I'm planning as part of the church to be removed as I understand eschatology. And if you don't agree with me, that's fine. But I can defend it from the scriptures, actually. So I don't study this and have my hands wringing and all scared. People say to me all the time, how do you do this and sleep at night? Sleep very well, thank you. Because I know that the Bible is true, and it's a supernatural book written by a supernatural God, which shows he's all powerful. And he's going to use the sinful actions of man to accomplish his ultimate purpose, which includes eventually what will be the greatest revival in world history during a 7-year period called the tribulation, where there are crazy things happening, things I don't want to be a part of, and I'm thankful I believe the church will be removed as I study the Bible. But they're going to become there'll be so many Jews and Gentiles during that period who become believers that the Bible says you can hardly number them. But you know what? Almost as fast as they become Christians, they're being slaughtered. Slaughtered. And eventually Christ will return, stop all this. And it says in Daniel 2, God's kingdom will come. It will crush Satan's kingdom. Of God's kingdom, there'll be no end. And he will judge the Antichrist, Satan, the false prophet, and all of those who have followed them. And then he will establish his kingdom for 1,000 years on this earth for 1,000 years, and he will fulfill his promises in Genesis 15 to the Jews and give them the land well beyond their borders now, because what they're encompassing now is not the borders that God's promised them. That's far more. And God is a covenant keeper, not a covenant breaker. And you better pray he keeps his word to the Jews, because then otherwise we have to question whether he keeps his word to us, the Gentiles. Comment in, I know I keep saying in closing, but Patrick, comment?
Exactly. Yeah, I tell you, the Christians need to get a handle on this today, not tomorrow, not next week. Now is the day for you to get yourself right with what's going on today in the world. You're the ones who are going to be the statesmen of tomorrow. Mm-hmm. If you can't articulate to somebody out there in the world that doesn't have a clue, their heads are spinning around, and I don't care if they're Christians or not. There's lots of people like that in the world today. If you receive any of this information, you're charged to be an ambassador with this information to tell people in the world what is going on so that they can take the appropriate action. For many, it's going to be they just need to throw up their hands and surrender to Christ right now. Mm. That's the bottom line for a lot of people. But it's also the same. It's also important for Christians who have one foot in the world and another foot in the kingdom to figure out which foot do they want to get burned. If they're going to keep the foot in the world right now, in the world system, they're going to be in big trouble. They're going to lose that leg in the end. You need to get both feet planted in the kingdom of God, where your protection comes from God himself to keep you through this whole ordeal.
Indeed. You know, again, that's what sets our network apart, folks. You can go watch a network that wants to argue the right versus the left, the right versus the left, the right versus the left. And I get bored with that. Fox News was on this morning when I sat down to drink my morning coffee, and I was watching Ashley, or whatever her name is, Ainsley Earhart and Ducey and some of these other guys sit on the couch. And I turned to my wife and I said, these people are boring. They are so boring. Right, left, politics. You know what? Yes, we discuss politics. But you know what? We're discussing the worldview issues. And these people don't even know what the 6 dominant worldviews are. There are more than 6, but they don't even know what the 6 dominant worldviews are that are ruling the world. And they cannot bring you a Christian understanding and a prophetic biblical understanding of what is happening and where we're going. I can, because I've read the Bible, as have many of you in this audience. And again, why can I sleep? Because these old saying goes, I've read the end. We win. Right? The question is, are you in God's camp? Are you in Satan's camp? These people will keep you all entwined in politics, but never give you the gospel, never explain to you the spiritual battle that's taking place, and that there's a battle going on right now, and that God is ultimately in control. He said this was going to happen. He laid it all out in his word. Read the Bible. Look, I got people that are saying to me, Brannon, I'm not a Christian, but I know enough about the Bible. It sounds like this is setting the stage for the mark of the beast and the one world government, right? I got non-Christians emailing me on a regular basis saying, I'm not a Christian, Brannon, but I love your show because you're talking about this from a Christian worldview, spiritual perspective, and I find it fascinating. I even have people who have said the pastors should have understood you don't want to go with mask mandates, you don't want to go with COVID passports, can't get in, can't do business or transact. Don't these pastors know that it's setting the mark of the beast system, or at least conditioning people for it? And I heard people say, I'm not a Christian, but at least I know enough to know the Bible says there's a system like this coming. Where are the Christians standing up? Well, most of the so-called pastors went along with it. Which is why
you are so right, Brannon.
Which is why I wrote that book, Religious Reich, because guess what? Most of your Christian leaders in America will open the door and jump on the bandwagon of this.
Well,
you watch.
Brannon, can this be my closing comment?
Yep.
You're exactly right. And I liked what Patrick said about you better get your spiritual house in order and your mental frame of mind toughened up because it's coming. And whether you believe in pre, mid, or post-trib rapture, Christians are going to be increasingly come under persecution.
Yep.
We're already seeing it. And that's why I had written an article during the peak of COVID when we were seeing vaccine mandates rolled out and these passports, digital health passports, where 10 major cities had basically shut off their entire commercial store system, restaurants and everything to anybody who could not prove digitally that they didn't have this app showing that they had been vaccinated. I mean, that was a beta test of the coming one world beast system in which you won't be able to buy or sell unless you can show that you have been digitally marked. And I had written the article saying that basically if you are complying with this system now during COVID, how on God's green earth would you ever stand against the mark of the beast when the pressure will be 1,000,000 times stronger to submit to that system and bow down to it? And it says bow down. That doesn't, a lot of Christians think that means, people will be worshiping and praising. No, that means submitting. That means submitting to the ungodly, devilish world system that says you got to be digitally marked in order to conduct a business transaction or to feed your family or to work a job. It was already beta tested during COVID. They know how many will comply, roughly. Of course, some people wised up. God bless them. They took the shots. They maybe even had a digital passport app on their phone, but they learned something from that, and they're not going to continue to comply with the evil system. But basically, the globalists know how many people are going to comply, and shockingly, it's a very high percentage.
Indeed. Gentlemen, leoholman.com, also leoholman.substack.com. And Patrick Wood, technocracy.news. He has a show here. He co-hosts with my son, Logan, twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6 o'clock Central. Right, Patrick?
You bet. We have fun together.
Yes, you do. And I appreciate your taking him under your wing. Technocracy.news, technocracy.news. Gentlemen, I think this is going to go viral. We're going to cut a lot of this up into clips and shove it all over Elon Musk's X to see how long before he bans us.
And he will.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
We will get grokked.
There you go. All right, guys. Hey, do you appreciate all we're doing here? Let me show you real quick a couple ways to support us. Here's a brand new website we just launched yesterday. Worldviewhealthcare.com. Worldviewhealthcare.com. I think we have a lower third for this, Reagan. Worldviewhealthcare.com. Check it out. Get your medications like the emergency kit, medical kit. Who knows what these globalists are planning when it comes to plandemics and pandemics? The contagion kit. Get your supplements like detoxing from the spike protein. I love this essential plan. That's $9.99 a month. Or the enhanced premier, $49.99 a month. Or the elite, which includes free prescriptions, pharmacy coaching, and free supplements with the wellness company. Wouldn't take long that you're saving money when you pay that $100 a month, because it won't take long before you buy supplements. Well, like Spike, that Spike one is like that's like $65 a month. Or no, the Ultimate Detox is $89. So it won't take long, folks, before the Spike one is, I think, $65. Yeah. It won't take long before you've overcome that cost, okay, of joining at $100 a month. Or if you, again, just want to get the wellness kit with the ivermectin and the amoxicillin and other things. I have like 5 of these. And then, of course, the contagion kit, which comes with also that one comes with its own personal nebulizer as well. So don't panic, but please be prepared for whatever these globalists are going to throw at us. Be prepared. Worldviewhealthcare.com, worldviewhealthcare.com, a brand new site we created so that you're sure to see everything that we think is important front and center, and we also get credit. So use that URL, please. The Wellness Company, worldviewhealthcare.com, worldviewhealthcare.com. Then run over, if you would, this right here, worldviewtalk.com. Worldview Talk, that's where you can get a satellite phone for free. Sign up for one of their very reasonable very reasonable plans for satellite phone and get a satellite phone for free. If the cell towers go down, if there's disruption in service, you'll still be able to communicate. Or maybe get the Bivy. This allows you to sync the Bivy to your cell phone and text through the satellite. You use your phone to type the text, but you send it through a Bivy, which goes to the satellite and down to your family member. So buy 2 and get a discount, buy 3 and get a discount. Make sure you can stay in contact and communication with your family. They also have solar generators. I have the Delta Echo 400. They have solar generators that'll run your whole house. Okay? Check this out. WorldviewTalk.com. They also have bulletproof backpacks. You can use that number 1-866-738-3224. 1-866-738-3224. Now, if you would like to get my book, The Coming Religious Reich, you don't need to buy it, folks. Go to worldviewtube.com/vault. All my books are there as ebook. Grave Influence, Religious Trojan Horse, The Coming Religious Reich. I was quoting from this one a lot tonight. It's like a 600-page book on how they're going to bring us world government and regional government, like the North American Union. Wrote it in 2016. More relevant now. More relevant now. I keep telling you guys that. So many of our programs at worldviewtube.com/vault are more relevant than when we recorded them years ago. You don't need to buy my books. They're a PDF right now. My audiobooks. I read this as an audiobook. Marxianity, my book on how Christianity and Marxism emerged. I just recorded another, chapter 8 of that as I finish up the audiobook of Marxianity. All of this is in the vault for you for just $9.99 a month, $9.99, or it gets even cheaper at $95 a year. Okay? Worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. All right, guys, let's roll the music. We'll call it a night. Remember, one of the greatest ways you can support us is by simply going to this website right here, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Don't forget, on Sunday nights, I teach a Sunday night church service. I'll be back Sunday night, 8 p.m. Central after our Christmas break, chapter 11, as I teach through the book of Revelation at worldviewtube.com on Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Central. All right? This is brought to you in part by our foundation and your gifts. We are a listener-supported network, worldviewfoundation.com. Let's go to the Dolly Cam. We're going to have to get her up and out of there tonight. She needs to get a little movement. Otherwise, she's going to be wide awake. There she is. There she is. She takes Gatatana. Hope you're giving your pets Gatatana. All right. We appreciate your watching. We appreciate your telling your family and friends about our Roku channel, our iOS apps, our Android apps, all of that. And we appreciate your praying for us as well. May God save America. Take care.
Government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon Howse.
Welcome. Glad you are with us. Thank you for the new introduction, by the way, Dalton, for putting that together and overseeing that. The guy has a great voice. And I understand he is the son of one of the guys that works at VCY America. All right, we got big news here, folks. I was at the desk at 7 a.m. this morning.